How difficult is Finnish? So, this is probably a video that is kind of needed if you are planning on learning Finnish, because Finnish is quite different from the other Norse languages. So, just getting into it a little bit, Finnish is spoken by about 5 million people, mostly within Finland, obviously, but there are minority groups that speak Finnish throughout Scandinavia, so the other surrounding countries. I don't have a map in this video, but Finland basically borders Russia, and then to the west it borders, I think it's Sweden. So, yeah, those kind of Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the countries that are around Finland do have minority groups speaking Finnish, but yeah, the vast majority of people speaking Finnish do live in Finland. So it is a Finnic language of the Uralic language family, making it kind of the odd one out in that area because it's not it's not a Germanic language, and it's not an Indo-European language, so it is a bit different. A lot of people would think, oh yeah, they're very similar to each other, and that's true, but Finnish is the only one that isn't really like that. Have I got my placement right on the map? I think I have. Yeah, if I've put the countries in the wrong spot, I'm very sorry. But yeah, Finnish is also one of only 4, I believe, EU languages that are Indo-European. So Finnish, Estonian, and Hungarian are Uralic languages. They're not actually Indo-European languages. And then I believe it's Maltese is an African language. It's not even Indo-European, I think, if I'm getting my facts right. Finnish is also generally considered to have 2 dialects, so Western and Eastern. These remain mutually intelligible, though, and they only differ in vowels, diphthongs, and rhythm, although there are a few other changes, like some of the pronouns are said differently. But yeah, overall, they're not too different. And yeah, because Finnish did not evolve from Latin, like plenty of other Indo-European languages, like Romance languages, for example, English speakers can find learning it considerably different from other Norse languages. So yeah, one of the biggest things is some people go in after already having learned another Norse language, or this is their first, and they assume that they're going to be very similar, which a lot of them are, but Finnish, of course, is different. So yeah, that's kind of, if you have to take away one thing from this video, I'd take that away. But yeah. So how difficult is it? Surprisingly, Finnish is actually considered to be a pretty hard language to learn for a few reasons. This can fool many beginners because it's written in English, and generally when we see languages that use the same alphabet as English, we assume it is pretty easy, which is not, like, a lot of the time they are generally easier. But yeah, Finnish may not be the best language for beginners to pursue because it does have a few things that can make it quite difficult. So it uses suffix or affixation, which basically means for different purposes, suffixes are added onto the word. So, for example, if you're saying, like, possession, for example, so if you have a word and you're saying your something in front of the word, like your dog, your house, for example, instead of putting, in English, obviously, we put the pronoun your in front, or the adjective your in front. In Finnish, it is a suffix, so you add on a certain letter to the end, or something like that, and that is what gives it its meaning. But then that's just for possession. So if you wanted to say in your something, for example, now you need to add another one. So you're just kind of adding on suffixes to convey meaning a lot of the time. I think that it primarily uses suffix or affixation. So this can be really difficult because it's almost like reading it is almost like putting a jigsaw puzzle together to figure out what is what, and then speaking it, you kind of have to put it together yourself to convey that meaning. So that can be difficult for beginners. Yeah, I have dealt with it a little bit. I don't know enough Finnish to know about that because I haven't learnt that language. But yeah, it can be quite difficult to try and figure out which letter means what as a beginner, particularly for speaking. Like, reading it is one thing because you can kind of read at your own speed and pull it apart, but speaking can be quite difficult when you need to do something like that. But yeah, Finnish vowel harmony. So Finnish has front vowels, which are the 3 in the bracket. I couldn't get rid of the white box highlighting, very sorry, and back vowels as well, and they cannot coexist within the same word. There's also I and E, which are neutral vowels, so they can be with either. This is kind of useful just for beginners to help with verb conjugation and things like that, where they need to, it's almost like a spelling rule. I think it is kind of a spelling rule, kind of, because it helps you know what you can and cannot put in the same word. So yeah, that is something as well. It also uses 15 grammatical cases, so that is a lot. In English, for example, we use 3 and we don't even change that much. German uses 4. Russian is famous for how hard its cases are, and they only use 6. So 15 is a lot. That's a lot of cases to learn. That's a lot of changing words when words are already being changed for various reasons. So yeah, that would be quite difficult to learn and understand. The good thing about having 15 cases is some of them are not very common. You don't use them a lot. but you still need to kind of have an understanding of them. It's easier once you have an understanding of case and an understanding of the language, it is easier enough to read and listen, because even though you might be unfamiliar with the word ending, you can make out the root word and get the meaning. The only problem is when you have to produce yourself, so writing and speaking, obviously you may not get it right a lot of the time, but you can still understand it. So yeah, that's the important part. And yeah, just remember you're a beginner, so there's no reason to stress about things like that. But yeah, 15 cases I did think I put in there because that is going to make it quite difficult. It also uses lengthy compound words, so if you kind of know a bit of German, you know that words can be strung together to form larger compound words. Finnish does do this as well sometimes, so that can be a problem. Probably not as big of a problem as some of the above ones, but yeah, it can be difficult. And then there is also significant verb conjugation. So yeah, those are a few things that can make Finnish quite difficult. And yeah, it has a lower lexical similarity and a less cognates than some other Norse languages because it isn't as related to English. But yeah, should you learn Finnish? Potentially. So in my opinion, Finnish is a cool language, but kind of trying to be objective about this, overall it doesn't carry the benefits of learning an easier, more common language like French, where a lot more people speak it and it's also way easier to learn and that kind of thing. Or going the other direction, learning a harder but more useful language like Mandarin, which is obviously going to be harder, but it's also extremely useful. So potentially, Finland can be beautiful to travel to, especially if you like the cold and that kind of thing. I think did I have it in the first? That looks really kind of being in that kind of cabin thing in the cold, even though that doesn't really count as being in the cold because you're not actually out in the snow. But yeah, I think that is cool. However, English is widely spoken, at least in cities in Finland, so if you just are visiting, or even if you're studying, Finnish is not necessarily 100% needed because there are plenty of programs and unis and stuff that are English speaking because of how many people go there. They have a really good education system and that kind of thing. So yeah, it does make a knowledge of Finnish not entirely necessary. Obviously, it's still good to know the language, but yeah, it's not entirely necessary. So yeah, unless you're planning on having connections to like Finland and travel or staying there or something, or potentially you're learning it for a partner or another reason, it's probably not in my opinion, not the best investment of your time as far as learning a language goes. It's going to have the biggest possible effect on you. But go for it if you want to, if that's what you want to do. It's not a bad language to learn. It's not like it's spoken by 10 people. It is spoken by 5 million people. But yeah, overall learning Finnish could definitely be fun and useful. But yeah, for me, it's not in my top languages I want to learn, but I do think it's cool. So yeah, just a few interesting facts as well. Finland uses no grammatical gender, which is really interesting for a European language. So there is no gendering words or anything like French or Italian, and they don't even have a distinction between he and she. So they use the same pronoun han, which is H-A-N, and that just means he and she. So if you translated that, it would technically be incorrect to say he is here or she is here because that's not actually what they would be saying. So yeah, I think that's interesting. Finnish also does not have a future tense at all, which is weird for a language with 15 oh no, that's cases, sorry, my bad. Finnish does not have a future tense. The present tense is used for discussing future endeavours, so instead of changing the verb to talk about the future, they just say it in the present, and if it needs some clarity, they can say like tomorrow before that, or probably, which might sound weird, but a lot of languages do that. Mandarin does that, and there are plenty. So yeah, it might sound a bit weird, or if you're learning Finnish, but it is done in a lot of places, so yeah. And yeah, they can eliminate confusion with words like probably and tomorrow. Finnish also uses 8 vowels. I think I had them all on another slide. I didn't write them in again because it was so painful the first time. These three, and then I and E as well. So that's 8. And 18 diphthongs. A diphthong is basically when 2 vowels are combined to make another sound. So in the word coin, for example, O and I make that oi sound. O and U make an ow sound and like ouch, that kind of thing. And words are also generally pronounced as they're written, so that's a shallow orthographic depth, which is one thing that can make it easier if words are pronounced as they're written. So yeah, a few interesting facts about Finnish. Overall, it's an interesting and different Nordic language that often surprises beginners with its shocking case system and a few other components, but yeah, it is not the easiest language for beginners to learn, but I think it is a cool language, and if this video has made you want to learn Finnish, go for it. I don't speak it, so I can't help you that much. I know, I think, Minä olen is I am. I know a few words in Finnish. I have a friend that speaks it, but yeah, I just wanted to make a video on it because I think it is a really interesting language, even though I don't particularly want to learn that. So yeah, if you are looking to learn a language though, there's a link in the description to my website I'm working on, which will have resources for most languages just to go through and learn them all. So if you're struggling or anything, you can click on it, find the part that you're struggling with, or you can just start at the beginning and go through the websites that I've linked and learn everything. So yeah, it's completely free, and I would recommend you check that out if you want. It's not currently 100% operational, but you can have a look around if you want. Send me a comment, any feedback or anything like that on things you want me to add or change and that kind of thing. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.